Now get ready. Here we go.
What is going on, everybody? It is Arkham here, and today we're doing a park analysis video for Epic Universe, the brand new Universal property in Orlando, Florida that is opening on May 22nd of 2025. It is nearly 2 months away as of the making of this video for when the park will be open, and oh my goodness, guys, this place looks incredible. Now, a lot of the footage you're going to see from me is going to be footage from the New York Comic Con panel that I attended to back in October, as well as stuff off of the website. I will not be using any photos from BioReconstruct or any of that sorts because that is their property and they were responsible for getting those photos, so I will not be using them for this video. But I will be using the website, which does a really great job of sharing just about everything located around the entire property and the park for Epic Universe. This place looks absolutely stacked, and I have a very strong case to believe that this park could be the best theme park in North America. And I'm very confident in saying that because after everything we've seen, with all the promotional videos, with all of the hype, with all of the construction updates, with the lighting, with a nighttime spectacular, with the 4 or 5 different worlds, with expansion room for more, just makes this so exciting to check out. And I'm gonna be so excited when I get to go later in the summer to check this park out for myself this year. So we are going to analyze everything Epic Universe. We're going to talk about all the rides especially, and where I think the more popular rides are going to be for Epic Universe, where are the crowds mostly going to be, where is the best spot for families to go to, and more. There's so much to talk about. This is going to be a long one, so grab your popcorn because we're going to be here while talking about Epic Universe because, man, this place looks absolutely hype. Let's get into it. To the website we go. So here we are on the park's website for Epic Universe, and right now, as I've mentioned before, there are 5 different worlds throughout the entirety of Epic Universe. And it makes up for a really incredible experience with something new around every corner. So all 5 of these lands include Celestial Park, Super Nintendo World, Dark Universe, Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and How to Train Your Dragon. All very popular franchises in their own respective right, with the exception of the original story of Celestial Park, which is serving as like the main street or the main icon of the property, the place that everybody has to walk through in order to get to their respective lands. Now let's start in Celestial Park. Now what's great about the website is that you can go through, click on these arrows, and it takes you all the way through some of the main icons. So this is actually the entrance right there for Isle of Berk. But if we go right around over here, we come across our first big attraction, Stardust Racers. Originally called Starfall Racers, had to have a name change due to copyright reasons, so they went with Stardust Racers instead. The theme remains the same. It's based around 2 comets racing each other and sort of have this really cool lighting package, and it has a cool Easter egg from Back to the Future on the back of the car as well. If you know about it, you know about it, but I'm not going to go too much into detail with that. This roller coaster definitely is going to be the highlight attraction when it comes to rides in Celestial Park. There is another ride that we'll get to that's in Celestial Park as well in a moment, but this roller coaster has some fantastic maneuvering and elements with it. I think it's a great ride that pays homage to the Dueling Dragons that used to reside in the location of Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. There's a left and a right side. One side is like this yellow color, and the other one's like this darker yellow color, just to resemble the different comets, excuse me. Both of them have a height of 133 feet tall, which is reached at the main inversion of the ride, which is only one inversion, or which they call the Celestial Spin, which you experience halfway through the ride. And both of them reach a top speed of 62 miles per hour, which I presume is after the first launch, but it could also be from the second launch. It's not very clear to tell at the moment when that actually happens. It is It is Mock Rides, a multi-launch coaster, 2 launches per side, and they race each other with 5,000 feet of track total. It is a very long ride, and it looks absolutely massive. It is a behemoth of a ride. It's also going to have onboard audio as well, so it's going to play some music based on the time of day. So if you're riding this thing during the day, it'll play a set of music, whereas at nighttime, it'll play a different type of music, which already provides a different experience based on when you go to check this thing out. This roller coaster looks absolutely incredible. I don't know if it's going to top Velocicoaster. I have never ridden Velocicoaster before, so I don't know how it's going to compare. It's obviously 2 different manufacturers. One's made by Intamin, and this is made by Mock Rides. So already there's going to be a massive difference there. As for what side is going to be more thrilling than the other, I'm really not too sure about that. And I think it's just going to come down mainly to preference. This looks like a back row ride. They actually had to add a trim brake to the first big drop of the ride because of the forces. So I wonder if the back row on this roller coaster is going to be the way to go, just off of that element alone. But all in all, it looks like a fantastic roller coaster, and I don't really know what side I'll prefer. I do want to ride both sides, and hopefully when I get to the park later in the summer, I get to have my own experiences for which one I personally prefer. Moving on to the next thing, as we pass by the portal for Harry Potter, is one of the biggest things in the park, and here we are, passing by a ton more fountains along the way, which leads us to our next attraction, the Constellation Carousel. This is the second attraction located in the property of Celestial Park. It is the first ride that you will usually come across when you enter. It is a carousel attraction, but it's a very unique carousel attraction. It's not like the typical carousel that you see when you go through any other theme park in the world. It has a bunch of different animals based around constellations that you could ride, but also the movement is very fluid and interesting. If you watch like any of the renderings or the trailers from the Epic universe, you get to really see how interesting the movement is. It's no typical carousel. I think it's like one of the very few of its types that's out there. So I'm very intrigued by this carousel, and I think that overall it looks to be a very mesmerizing attraction, and I'm eager to try it out. I'm not sure if I'm going to prioritize riding it when I go, but I think just seeing how this ride moves is going to be very interesting and honestly a really cool thing to watch happen. So let's move on forward as it passes through. As you can see the moving going on. There's like they're on like discs similar to how like there's like teacups, and some of them move around in different sort of ways. There's a lot of different fountains in Celestial Park, and they really utilize that as well. Obviously, Atlantic is one of those locations as well. One of the restaurants that's in Celestial Park, and you just get this fantastic view when you're just right by the lake. It looks incredible. I mean, I'm very, very invested. This feels like a multi-day experience in just this one park. I seriously don't think that there's going to be, like, you can't do everything in one day. And speaking of doing everything in one day, here's a look at the outside shop of Super Nintendo World. And I mean, it's really cool how they kind of incorporate all these other shops in Celestial Park on like the outside a little bit, especially for Super Mario World, which is probably one of the most popular IPs in the entire park, maybe outside of Harry Potter. So it's really cool to see them incorporate this, like say that if a land is full, then they could obviously use that to their advantage. And there's obviously a lot more in Celestial Park as we get closer to the portal for Dark Universe here, which is towards the back left of the park. We get closer to this really cool restaurant called the Blue Dragon Pan Asian Restaurant, which is going to have this awesome dragon statue at the front, located right next to the Dark Universe portal. I think this is going to be really awesome. I can't wait to see how that looks right from the get-go. We pass by the statue, and then we make a 180, and here is the Grand Helios Hotel. This thing is a monster. This looks a lot bigger than you think. And because it's absolutely massive. It towers over everything. I'm jealous that I don't have any money at all to go inside this hotel and stay in it for like 2 days, because this hotel looks absolutely insane. For those that have the money to stay there, bless, because I will never have that kind of money. And here is an outer look view at everything Epic Universe from all of the different areas. It looks incredible, and as you can see, it will have a fireworks show. They have been testing a fireworks show for a very long time in the park. So that is Celestial Park. This whole giant realm that you are looking at here over this map is Celestial Park. So it is super huge. Obviously, from the very beginning entrance that's located right down here, all the way up to the Grand Helios Hotel, is going to make up the entire sum of Celestial Park. But then there's also the little things, which aren't really little, or what I'm going to say, the main event. But before we get into the 4 different lands that make up around Celestial Park, let's talk about those 2 rides once again and where I think that they will be placed. So Constellation Carousel is a family attraction, as mentioned earlier, so it might not have the craziest of lines, whereas Stardust Racers, on the other hand, I think will. This Stardust Racers, I think, is going to end up being the biggest roller coaster in the park. It's obviously the standout roller coaster in the park, and I personally think it's going to be the most popular attraction in the park in terms of roller coasters. Now, I've mentioned earlier, it is a very stacked attraction list throughout the entirety of the park. So we have much to discuss, and we are now going to go in clockwise motion, starting with Super Nintendo World, and we are going to explore the world. Let's check it out. So, checking out Super Nintendo World here, you would go into the pipe, which takes you up through, huzzah, the entirety of Super Nintendo World, which makes up for 3 attractions. So, as you get to explore, you exit out of Peach's Castle, and the first attraction that is on the same level is the Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge attraction. It is a very cool attraction. It basically uses augmented reality technology on the inside, where you basically are going against Bowser's group, going into his race and trying to win the race. And as a big Mario Kart fan myself, and I've played a majority of the Mario Kart games, I know I'm gonna eat this thing up. It looks so much fun. I'm so eager to try this ride out. It's gonna be very weird as well. I know one thing for certain is that it's gotten some solid reviews from Universal Japan, which is where the first version of this ride is. It certainly is a learning curve because you actually have to aim with your sight. So with the augmented reality, you basically are shooting these red shells or these other colored shells, depending on where you're sitting, at the enemies like Bowser or any of the Koopalings that you might have to take out that are in front of you, and you have to aim with your own sight. So I'm very curious to how that whole aspect is going to work and what they have in store. And what's really cool is that depending on how you do depends on the ending of the ride. So again, gives you more of an incentive to go back onto this ride and do it all again. And that's what I really like. You'll notice that as a trend with a couple of these rides in the park, where they kind of have this exploratory ending, which you get to figure out and find for yourself as to which ones are the best endings, which ones are not. So I really like that. But if you go right to Bowser's Castle, you'll go there and you exit out of the Mario Motors, which is a store in the property. Let's move on. There's a lot of very interactive things throughout the park as well. And as you make your way around, you get to see the gazebo for Peach, which is where you'll meet Peach. And here is the second attraction, which is the Yoshi's Adventure, located on the bottom level here. It is an Omnimover style attraction. It's a slow-moving ride, perfect for the kids, perfect for the families. And I swear I've never seen an Omnimover outside like this. I think this is going to be a very cool visual for people when they go into this land. It's a very small land on paper, and I really think it's unique with how well they use the space. It's such an interactive land, it looks like, and is going to really tend towards the families the most because of the colors and the interactivity that this whole land possesses. I'm so curious with how all that's going to work when push comes to shove. Let's move on now as we come across a couple of things. There's a couple of activities, such as the Key Challenge and interactive activities. There's a multitude of them in this area, such as this one here with the Goomba. They have one for a Piranha Plant. They have a couple in Donkey Kong Country as well. They have it separated based on whether it's the Mario Land or the Donkey Kong Country Land as well. So you kind of have that as well. You have to get these key bands, which will allow you to play these interactive games and allow you to build up your score. And to my knowledge, if I remember from Universal Japan and how it works there, when you get all of these key challenges and interactivities, you could then go into a mini boss battle and go against Bowser Jr. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to show us where that is on here, but it's really cool that you get to have this other kind of interactions, almost like Mario used to have. And here's another one. That's the Piranha Plant one with the timer. And this is one of the restaurants in the area, one of the biggest restaurants, and this is the Toadstool Cafe. Again, this is returning from Universal Studios Japan. And the food looks really cool. I'm very intrigued by the food that they offer in that restaurant. And here is one of the stores, which is the 1-Up Factory as well. So right off to the side there. And then we move on into Donkey Kong Country. Right through here is a continuation of Super Nintendo World. And here we are. There's only one attraction located inside of Donkey Kong Country, and that is going to be way in the back over here, and that is the Minecart Madness roller coaster. This is the first roller coaster that's inside of a land, which is meant to mimic the idea of jumping carts, just as shown here. It uses a boom coaster technology, which is basically a roller coaster, which the roller coaster track is underneath your actual ride vehicle, and your ride vehicle is held by this really strong arm on the right side of the track to basically make it mimic that you are physically jumping the rails of the track, which is a very awesome concept. I'm very curious because the track is fully on its side 90 degrees. I'm very intrigued to how it's going to affect maybe smoothness. But then again, it being a minecart kind of style ride, I feel like it's going to be meant to be a little bit on the janky side. This ride in itself is going to be a 40-inch height requirement to experience. Oh, and I didn't express this earlier, but all the rides in the park have under 40-inch height requirements. So far, the only height requirement ride that we came across earlier was Stardust Racers. That is a 48-inch height requirement. I did not express that earlier. That is my fault. But Minecart Madness, most people would come back here for that. There's a couple of other shops in here and a meet and greet location for Donkey Kong himself as well. Here's one of the other interactive games that you could play, and this is Rambi Bongo Breakout, which is based off of the famous bongo rhythm game that was on the GameCube. I played before, so I'm sure I would eat this up as a instrumentalist myself with these kind of things. I'm sure I would go crazy for. It looks like a lot of fun. They have a lot of interactive things going. There's a lot of crazy theming with the temples as well. And that's the Funky Aircraft store as well. And here's a general overview look at the land itself outside of the Minecart Madness. You can see a couple more stuff from Minecart Madness and the Stone Pillar themes right over here. They have a food location called the Bubbly Barrel and Funky's Flying By, which is a mini store in itself. This whole area looks so cool, and I cannot wait to go into Super Nintendo World. I don't know what order I'm going to go in yet when I go to the park, but my gosh, this is one of the most interactive areas that I've seen. Another thing to also keep in mind of as well is that they do have separate exit points from the lands itself outside of going through Peach's Castle. So where that is on the map, they don't really illustrate, but they do have different ways to leave a land outside of going back the way you came through, I guess, just to alleviate with crowds. And trust me, on your visit, especially in the first year or so, it's going to be packed. Trust me there. Let's move on to the next area. Alright, we are now back in Celestial Park, and out of all the rides real quick in Super Nintendo World, I think the most popular one is going to end up being Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge, followed closely behind by Minecart Madness and Yoshi's Adventure, even though the capacity of Minecart Madness is certainly questionable, but the fact that it is a moving station, I don't think is going to be much of a worry for the capacity for that attraction. However, I do think that the Mario Kart ride, since it has a lot more going for it and the technology, I think is just going to have it be a longer wait. So that's something to look out for. But continuing our path around the park clockwise, we're going to go into the area of the park that I am most anticipated for, and the area that I personally believe is going to end up being the most popular of the four, and that's going to be Dark Universe. Let's go! Here we are. It's alive. It's alive. Dark Universe is based on the village of Darkmoor. And you get to go into this area of Darkmoor, hear tales of all different stories of the Universal Classic Monsters through 2 crazy thrilling attractions and some really cool shops and experiences. There's not a lot of key points in this area per the website, but let's check them out anyway. We have the Praetorius, we have a couple of restaurants, and we have the highlighting attraction right in front of us. And here we go, right inside to check out none other than Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein Experiment. This is a Cuckoo Arm dark ride experience. If you have experienced Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey at Islands of Adventure, this is the same ride system with some modifications to it. 48-inch height requirement, and I personally believe this might be the most popular ride in the park. If you know how successful Forbidden Journey was at Islands of Adventure, this ride is going to be no different. The storyline seems crazy cool. They are not using a single screen for any sort of reason, unlike Forbidden Journey. Everything seems to be fluid animatronics throughout. I'm just so intrigued by this ride. This ride is probably the most hyped up I am for a dark ride ever. This is probably going to be the best ride in Epic Universe, period, the end. I really don't know where else to go about this ride. It's going to have a couple pre-shows. It's going to have some scare actors in the queue line, which is going to be absolutely nuts. And the amount of classic monsters you come across in this ride, from Dracula to Frankenstein, to Frankenstein's Bride, to Igor, to Phantom of the Opera, to the Invisible Man. There's so much happening in this one ride that I can't even comprehend to know what it's going to do. This ride is going to probably be the best thing in the park, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's the best ride in the park, or even the best ride in the United States as it is. This ride truly is going to be nothing short of incredible, and I really think this is going to have one of the longest wait times at the park. And as you can see, when it goes all the way around, we get to go inside, check out some of the painting that's broken apart, and as we head back through the castle, once again, we got a very cool sightline of the manor. And here we go, heading to our next big attraction. Right over here is a spinning roller coaster, Curse of the Werewolf. And you get it's a swinging mock rides launched spinning coaster. It's a perfect family attraction right here. And this originally was not a roller coaster that was in the plans to actually come into this area. This was a last-minute addition for the property to add this roller coaster in, and honestly, I think they made the right choice in adding Curse of the Werewolf here. Originally, it was going to be a stage show, but they decided against it, and once again, I believe they made the correct choice by adding this ride. It's another roller coaster attraction that I believe is just going to be a ton of fun. Another good family coaster for the park that is going to really bring the families to this area, primarily for Curse of the Werewolf. I think the wait times could be a bit of a question mark for this ride. I think in general, this land is going to have probably the biggest wait times for attractions, in my personal opinion, because of what this land offers. And I think this, even though this land is going to be mostly geared towards the upper teens and the adults that have grown up with these classic monsters, obviously, the young ones are going to probably be a little bit scared, I'm not going to lie, of this area, but I do think that they will grow to love this area and the cool interactions that this has, and I think this roller coaster is going to be a good stepping stone for those young ones as well. It looks like a fun ride, don't get me wrong. But let's move on through the area. We pass by the 2 attractions, and we come across one of the restaurants here, the Burning Blade Tavern, which is, as it exactly describes it to be, a Burning Blade Tavern. This is awesome. So, in the back of the area, they have this windmill based around the Frankenstein movie. These blades of the windmill will actually light up on fire every, 15 to 20 minutes or so. And they have, this mini show that goes with it. I think this is going to be awesome. And I'm very curious to see how this goes. It is one of the restaurants in the area and in eatery areas. This looks really cool. It's going to provide a lot of awesome visuals, and I wonder how it's going to look at night, because that's where it's going to really shine. At night, this thing's going to look awesome. Let's keep going around the Burning Blade Tavern here as we move on to back to the main part of the area and the village of Darkmoor. And here is Das Steakhouse, another restaurant in the area as well. This looks like a really cool restaurant as well, but this is right at the front of the park, right at the front of the area, I would say. It looks like a really cool, it's a steakhouse, so I would assume it's going to serve steak. And it's going to have a lot of cool themed interactions. And here is a little bit more in regards to that, and this is the monster makeup experience that they're going to have. All the employees, from what I've seen, have like these like white cloaks on, like they're scientists. I think it looks so cool. But that is the entirety of the village of Darkmoor and the Dark Universe area. I still believe this is going to end up being the most visited area, if not the most popular area, by those around that are closer in their like upper teens. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards this area, I feel like. So it wouldn't hurt to go to this area first and knock out those 2 rides that are there, and then come back another time if you wanted to revisit that area. I feel like is going to end up being the case for this experience and this land. So let's talk about where I think these 2 rides are going to place. I do think that, as I said earlier, Monsters Unchained is going to end up being the most popular attraction in the park, and might end up having the longest wait times through that. As for Curse of the Werewolf, I think it's going to be a better family coaster than Minecart Madness, but the capacity could be an issue. The swing launching is cool, making it a longer ride. It is on the shorter end, but I still think it's going to be a fun ride no matter what. So that is Dark Universe. Let's move on. Next up is the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and the Ministry of Magic. This was an area that's been rumored for a very long time before Epic Universe even was a thing, but now here we are, about to go into the Ministry of Magic for the first ever time. Let's go check out this world. Here we are inside of the Ministry of Magic for Harry Potter World, where we are stepping into France. Wow, what a cool area. There's not a lot to talk about this one. There's only one attraction here, and we'll see if it starts with that. But it's basically very similar to the setup of Diagon Alley. It's just based off of the location that you are in, is based off of the Fantastic Beast films. They haven't been as successful as the main Harry Potter films, but I think the location that they chose is definitely different enough to provide a different experience from Diagon Alley as well as Hogsmeade in their other respective parks as well. So let's see what the area itself has to offer. As I mentioned, there's only one attraction here. There's a lot of different eateries in this area. Candy stores selling very similar foods to Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley. This is one of the restaurants here, Café Léonard de la Serine. So this is a restaurant as well. I believe it's going to serve French food because of the location of it being in France. So really, really cool. A lot of very tall buildings. They use a lot of illusions to demonstrate how far away stuff is. You're going to see a lot of that in this area. They do have a lot of expansion room in this area to add a lot more attractions as well. So this is an area that you could easily see add a new attraction down the road. Here's one of the stores in the area, Cosmo Auditor Baguettes. Sounds like it's also going to serve baguettes, which sounds really interesting. So I'm invested in that. It's also wands. I believe it's wands, yeah. So not baguettes, it's going to serve wands. It's going to have wands. So there's a wand shop in there as well. This back area is actually where they would have had is where the other attraction would be. That is a Niffler, and you can open up that Niffler case because there are more interactive wand experiences. They actually upgraded their wands. There's like a wand 2.0 now. So now you can basically have even more different interactions using your wands. So absolutely bring the wands that you have, that you got from the other areas of Universal, because they might work here. And that is a Niffler in a chest of money that I want and will probably never get. So let's move on as we go past all these other experiences and where they were formerly going to have like a Broom VR ride over in this corner as well. But now that is no longer going to be the case. And hopefully they have an idea for another ride to put in this area because I feel like it's going to be needed. Here's a couple more areas and stores. It has some little bit of some dark alleyways as well. And a lot of really cool just scenery. There's so much scenery around. And right at the very front of the area is none other than the Le Cirque Arcanus, which is a show. This is one of the first shows in an area that we have come across. It won't be the last. And it's based around very similar to the tents that you see, and you go inside, and it's almost like the it's very similar to, oh my gosh, the TARDIS in Doctor Who, where you step inside and it's a lot bigger on the inside than the outside. This is one of those kind of illusions that they are going to provide to us here, where we get to go inside this tent and watch a massive show on the inside. This is going to be really cool. I don't know if it's going to show, it's probably going to show periodically or like every hour or like every 2-3 hours or something like that. I'm really invested to how they were able to put this show together, so I cannot wait to see how this one will work. And then last but not least, we have the main attraction. If you take a left-hand turn into the area, we actually cannot enter the ride through here because we actually have to take the Floo Network to get to the main attraction, which is right here. We get the Metro Floo into the Ministry of Magic, which is where our main attraction for Harry Potter and the Ministry of Magic area in Epic Universe takes place, which is based around the story of Umbridge's trial from Deathly Hallows movie. Oh my days, this is awesome. They actually got the actress back that plays Dolores Umbridge from the movies to be a part of this ride as well, which I think is really cool. Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry, we basically are traveling from, taking the Floo Network from one whole area of the Wizarding World back to the Harry Potter Wizarding World, interestingly enough, into the Ministry, which is this massive ride. It's an elevator system style ride. Goes up and down and sideways, left and right. It kind of reminds me a little bit from what track-wise I've seen. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man and Islands of Adventure, mixed like different interactivities from like Tower of Terror because of the elevator, and I'm 90% sure there's going to be like some kind of crazy drop on it to the adventure or whatever. I feel like it's going to have a little bit of some Gringotts inspired stuff as well. This is a ride I think is going to have some technical issues. They've actually already been having a couple of technical issues with the ride itself. Like they've only been able to run a limited number of trains on it. So it tells me what they're using for this ride is super advanced. And the different things that they're having the ride vehicle do already is putting a toll on the experience. So I'm almost wondering if this ride is going to be able to run at capacity to its potential by opening, which granted there's still 2 months, there's still plenty of time for that. This is a ride that I think could be a difficult one to get on, which is why I could easily make the argument for this being one of your first priorities. For a dark ride perspective, the question then becomes, is it going to be better than Monsters Unchained? Which is very possible for that to be the case. Obviously, Harry Potter being the popular IP that it is already going to basically guarantee this ride's success no matter what. The ride system looks cool. The idea behind it is very interesting. They're basing it off of something that happened in the movie, which is always a very good thing to do. It would make the second attraction in a Universal park to be based off of the Deathly Hallows movies, which I think is funny. But I still think that this is a really cool ride that I am invested to check out if it's open on my visit. And that is going to be the entirety of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter for the Harry Potter Ministry of Magic area in Epic Universe, based around the Fantastic Beasts films. We have one more area to go and check out. So here we go. Alright, we have one more area to check out, and it has the most amount of attractions in the entire park in this one area, and that is based off of the DreamWorks animated series, How to Train Your Dragon, The Isle of Berk. And they're coming out with a live-action adaptation in July as well. How to Train Your Dragon, The Isle of Berk is going to be Awesome, let's go check out this world. We, my friends, have dragons here in the Isle of Berk. There's a good amount of attractions here. One roller coaster, three different rides as well. So basically about 4 rides if you want to include the 2 rides over there in tandem. That is completely up to you. There's a lot to talk about with this area, even though it doesn't seem like it. And there's a show as well. They're going to have some flying dragons via drones above your head. There's going to be so much to explore, and this is going to really be geared towards the families with this area. So let's check out the Isle of Berk and the dragons that reside here, because there's a lot of them. You get to meet Hiccup, Toothless, and all the other countless dragons as well. And back in this area is where you will find the entrance for Hiccup's Wing Gliders. This is the roller coaster that is located in this area that basically takes you around the whole area. It is an intimate launch coaster, and it looks like a ton of fun. I'm very curious to how the sensation of flying like you were using Hiccup's Wing Glider itself, how that sensation's gonna feel. This looks like a really cool roller coaster. Doesn't look super thrilling. It looks very easy for families to do. And that's really about it with that ride. It looks really cool. I'm invested with how that roller coaster is going to run. It has some really cool stuff that goes over the water with. You dive underneath the bridges. You kind of helix around. You go through the stands. There's a lot that happens on this ride. And speaking of stands, you get to fly through the stands of this next attraction, the Dragon Racers Rally, which is a set of flyers, which is a really cool attraction where you basically control the thrill. And you get to control, if you get to go upside down a lot, you get to control all that stuff. I wonder if they're going to tie in the whole racing theme and basically say, hey, you got to do the most amount of flips possible, and you get to win the race. And it might be something crazy like that. But this is definitely going to be the most thrilling attraction in the area. It is a really cool attraction. If you've ever done one of these, and you get the opportunity to just take these 2 fins and push them either up, down, or alternate based on what direction or banking you want. And if you bank enough, or depending on the wind, of course, could depend on how fast you might be spinning or going upside down. This is certainly a ride that is very interesting. If you have never gone upside down before, you can kind of control that. But of course, if you don't want to go upside down, you don't have to. You can control the fins in a way to where you don't go upside down. And again, I love the idea of this ride. I hope this ride is one of those where it continues to duel and they have to send both out at a time. But of course, what's really awesome is that they can always run this ride in the event that they have to renovate one side. So it makes it really easier to operate this ride no matter what, where they renovate one side over a set period of time and then the other side's running, even though the lines might be a little bit longer. So hopefully they maintain both of them at the same time, where they both get to actually properly duel together as it's intended to from the sound. So let's move on. And that takes up mostly the left side of this area. There's also a playground over here for the kids as well to explore. Viking Training Camp is the name of that. As we make our way around to the opposite side, there's a couple of dragon houses. Some of the tails move as well, which is really cool. Here is one of the restaurants over in this area, which is based off of the first movie, The Mead Hall. So this Mead Hall is a popular location that's used in the first film. So it is used commonly throughout the rest of the series as well. I think this is an awesome looking eatery. If it's based on the actual film itself and it's kind of served and acted in that way, I think this restaurant's going to be a lot of fun for the families. So next up, we are heading to, I guess it's glitched here, but it looks like it's going to take us to the show, which is the Untrainable, which is located in the back of the area. Here's the Fire Drill, which is a boat ride that is a splash boat ride where you kind of just like splash targets, but you can also splash other people as well. And that's what this ride is, Fire Drill. Really cool ride. It's another one of those like shooter rides where you basically turn this crank and it spits out water. So it's actually a ton of fun. And of course, if you come across other boat and riders, you get to spray them with water too. So it's a water ride that has definitely been in the need. And this is going to serve as that very, very well. And then finally, now I can talk about it, in the very back of the park, in the very back of the area, is the Untrainable Dragon, which is a huge show. This is a show that actually has been at a Universal Park before, and now it's going to be here. I do not want to say anything about the show. I've never seen the show, but I know from what I've heard from people who have gone to the Universal Park that houses this show, it is unbelievable. So this is definitely a must-do in the area if you go and check out this park. You definitely want to make sure you're aware of the times for when the Untrainable Dragon shows, because it looks absolutely stunning. So let's recap everything that we have come across all 5 areas and talk about what rides are going to end up being the more popular. Let's go. And here we are one last time on the website for Epic Universe, checking out the map from above. After exploring all 5 different areas and descriptively talking about all of the attractions on the inside and some of the main key highlight areas needing of note. There's so much to talk about with this area, but let's talk about the rides in general and which ones I think are going to be the most popular. As I mentioned earlier, in Celestial Park, Stardust Racers is easily going to have one of, if not the biggest lines in the park, as you don't have to actually physically enter an area just to get there. In Super Nintendo World, I made mention of Minecart Madness because of a potential capacity issue, as well as the Mario Kart ride as well. Dark Universe, it's going to be very easy. I think both of those rides are going to be very popular, but Monsters Unchained is going to be a different kind of animal. Judging off of how the wait times for Forbidden Journey are at Islands of Adventure, it only makes sense that Monsters Unchained is going to end up being one of, if not the most popular attraction in the park. Battle at the Ministry, I think, is going to be popular for the sake of just trying to get on it. I feel like this ride's going to have technology issues just based off of what has been said about it. So this is a ride of concern for me. I hope that everything works out with it, but I'm not sure how I don't know how technically it's going to work out at the current moment. And then Isle of Berk is a little bit more interesting. I think Hiccup Swing Glider, of course, being the roller coaster, is going to make sense for it to end up being the more popular attraction. It's the more thrilling ride. I also think a lot of people are going to be crowding into this area to check out Untrainable, which is going to be another one. And of course, I have to include Fire Drill on here because of it being a water ride. And as you are in Florida, it gets really, really hot in the summer. So I think a lot of people are going to take advantage of that and get on Fire Drill as much as they commonly could. And of course, Dragon Racers Rally, being a cool interacting dueling ride, is going to be very popular. I think all the rides in How to Train Your Dragon are going to be very popular. I think a lot of families are going to gravitate towards here. A lot of the fans of Harry Potter are going to go here. A lot of people with childhood like mine are probably going to go to Super Nintendo World. And then everyone's biggest anticipation is going to end up being Dark Universe being probably the most popular area. Of course, Celestial Park will be the most crowded because it is the biggest. But it'll be interesting to see how where the crowds flow to, where the capacity limits are for certain areas, and how they will adapt and deal with that. Is there going to be extended lines outside of an area just to get into it? Is there going to be a queue system to get into a land? Is there when a land overcrowds? It's going to be very interesting to see how they go about this, because they really are taking full advantage of ticket prices, and they're taking advantage of getting people into this park as much as they can. Another thing to also factor in is that anybody that stays on site in the Universal Resort gets to go into the park an hour earlier. So to my knowledge, they have access to everything in Super Nintendo World as well as everything that is in Celestial Park an hour before official park open. So that is another thing to keep note of. Obviously, the change of times for what is the early hours can change. I think having them have Super Nintendo World be that area that opens the hour earlier is the smartest decision, if you ask me. But How to Train Your Dragon is another one I can see them kind of gravitating towards a little bit more as well. But I think Super Nintendo World makes the most sense for being that area to open first thing for early ride time. But that's going to do it for my overall Epic Universe Park analysis video. This was a very long video in the making that I've wanted to make ever since I got the word myself that I was going to be going to the park over the summer. I have already bought my tickets, and I cannot wait to be stepping foot on this property for the first ever time over the summer. From learning more about it in October from the New York Comic Con panel, to finally getting the opening date, and finally buying my tickets to go this year, I cannot wait to check out what this brand new park has in store and how it shakes things up for the theme park industry from a business perspective. This is going to be a fun project to watch. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Always thank your ride operators. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you all in Epic Universe soon. Goodbye.
Here we go.